Welcome to our audience for this series of sessions on AI Beyond the Hype. My name is John O'Connell, and I'll be the inquisitor of my guest today, Simon Black, who will tell you about himself and his business Lexical and what they do in this world and hard-won experiences and benefits which he has been delivering for his clients. We plan to keep this to within broadly 30 minutes. So I would encourage everyone to stick with it to the end so you don't miss any of these pearls of wisdom from Simon. Scale Up Group, by way of introduction, I'm the executive chairman and founder. We help high growth tech businesses such as Simon's grow faster by obtaining funding, including from ourselves, and continue with that relationship until whatever destination Simon, in this case, decides to have through various other programs. But enough of that for now. Simon, thanks once again for agreeing to share your thoughts and experiences with us. Perhaps you'd be kind enough to tell us a bit more about yourself, your background, and also what your business does.
Yeah, thanks, John. It's great to join you. My name's Simon Black. I spent many years as a lawyer. I trained in the 20th century. I even practiced in the 20th century, 25 years at a major law firm, mainly working in Asia. So you can probably imagine I was used to doing law and particularly contracts, the old way. And since 2017, I co-founded Lexical Labs, and we have a software called Tiro that essentially provides AI contract review and intelligence solutions. And broadly, what does that mean? It means giving visibility to an enterprise's contracts. It means automating simple contract tasks, and it means actually trying to think like a lawyer or a company's employees when negotiating or managing contracts. So actually getting into the cognitive business of contracting.
And why would anyone want that, Simon? What's the outcome?
It's a really good question. So to put this in context, if you look at a business and their contracts, so the contracts are the glue that essentially bind that company to all of its customers and suppliers. It contains all of the business, all of the income, all of the risks, relating to a company. It's all there in one place, but traditionally contracts were just impenetrable and inaccessible for reasons we can understand. They're voluminous, go to hundreds of pages. And, when I speak to business executives, so this is business managers, not lawyers, they often say the same thing. The contracts are fundamental to my business. I hate working with them. I hate wading through the treacle. I hate the tennis that goes involved, the back and forth in the negotiation. My legal colleagues are great, but they're overloaded. I worry about things. I worry about the risk in the contract. Do people know in my company what's in the contract? I worry whether the customer team is charging the right amount. I worry whether I'm overpaying suppliers. So you have all of this risk, but also opportunity in the contract. So I suppose I'm describing the scale of the problem, but also the scale of the opportunity that software like ours can rationalize things and visualize them and then start automating tasks.
So is one of the benefits to make sure each contract incorporates best practice, so there's no holes in a contract. And secondly, am I hearing to make it more understandable to the layman?
Yeah, what we're saying, I think there's two parts of it. What we're trying to achieve is that when businesses negotiate their contracts, they're actually, getting the right risk outcome in the contract. So they understand the risks they're taking. They can weigh that against the value of the contract. And then once it's signed, the terms of the contracts, all the obligations, all the terms are just readily accessible. They can be visualized, and they can interact with the other enterprise, databases. And so that's for good business management, but it's also for risk management. And if I gave one example, if we all remember the Carillion insolvency, one of the fundamental reasons why they went insolvent is that what was in their contracts wasn't reflected in their accounting policies. And this is where technology can actually help present and visualize and extract data. And so therefore it's all aligned with the rest of the business, systems, that businesses run.
So they try to put words in your mouth here, maybe, but they assume certain revenues or they assume certain costs from these contracts, but actually were not what was stated in the contracts themselves.
Correct. How are they presenting it in their accounts? And they weren't aware of it, or certain people weren't aware of it, and their auditors weren't aware of it. So therefore, solutions like ours are able to actually, I think, verify that, help businesses run their contracts, but also negotiate them more effectively. And of course, we haven't got into the in terms of benefit, in terms of the amount of cost and time involved in contracting. Traditionally, the direct cost is somewhere between 2 and 4% of a contract value. That's a huge amount. And then the indirect cost, what we mean the indirect cost is that the delay that often contracts have in negotiation. That indirect cost is another few percentage points. So that's a huge tax on a business that technology and automation can help reduce.
Are you able to, obviously not quoting any client names, but quantify that in what it means in money terms?
Yeah, it's one has to break that down, but in terms of I think the way to answer that is traditionally what we've been doing is helping businesses negotiate what we call their in-flight contracts. So these are the contracts that are coming in before they're signed. That's been our focus to date. And we've been really focusing on speeding up the lawyers and the contract specialists and helping them arrive at the right outcomes. So we can measure time and cost savings on that. And sometimes, for a complicated contract, the review and response time can be reduced by 75%.
Wow.
But actually, the real gain is not so much just making the horse and the rider go faster. It's actually changing the paradigm of how we can execute contracts more effectively. So, for example, business teams supported by the software often don't need the lawyer and the contract specialist to review the whole thing. Maybe they just need a couple of clauses reviewed. So you can then start to get benefits in terms of these indirect costs, bringing down the time it takes for new contracts to be finalized. And then after they're signed, bring down the cost of managing them.
Yeah. Because we're all familiar, aren't we, with contracts coming from templates, but this is going a level way beyond that, presumably. Yeah.
Well, that's right. I mean, what our sweet spot is businesses that are receiving contracts. So that could be new contracts coming from their suppliers and their customers, what we call third-party paper. But also, there's a lot of response to one's own template contracts. So there's a lot of time, cost, and risk in that process of reviewing contracts.
Yeah. I'm wincing internally here because many years ago, about the 19th or 20th version of a contract which my company had, and I was somewhat outgunned, shall I say, by the army of lawyers on the other side. And whether deliberately or otherwise, they deleted a clause which was a highly protective one for me. Not allowing for claim for consequential losses, etc., which virtually bankrupted the business. I managed to get through it. That's for another day. But so I can personally relate to how time pressures, commercial pressures, especially if you've got an unequal struggle going on, can be very dangerous for one party or the other.
Yeah, and machines don't feel time pressure, and they don't feel the emotional pressure, and also
Yeah.
they're often informed by a much greater set of data than is inside the head of one lawyer or another. And we've all had these arguments, oh well, something's market standard or not. Actually, now with the sort of the data available, machines can help people make really, decisions, so the right decisions.
Now, no, you're talking in the context of a presumably very large organisation with its own legal department. Does what you said also apply to where external lawyers are being used?
Yeah, I think that these types of solutions, have great potential, whether you're in a law business, in a large business, or a small business. So it's across the board. And
Yeah.
although most of our customers at the moment are large, enterprise, we have one that has 3,000 users and 500 active users. So that's the sort of scale. But equally, with small businesses, smaller businesses, medium to small businesses, often they might not have a legal team, or they have one person who's overloaded. This is where there's huge potential, because in those types of businesses, it's the business executives that really carry the burden of contract negotiation and management. And
Yeah.
so software can become their virtual lawyer. It can help guide them to the right results. It can present the data in the form that they want it. They can then use the data, and it can speak the language of business.
Right. Very good. The sort of clients of yours, you're having to deal with being, the classic SME in your case versus very large enterprises, which is in our CEO forum, we've all agreed that's a definition of madness, but everyone is doing it.
Yeah.
It must be taking you a long time to move from prototype pilot stage to commercial contracts for you.
Yeah, particularly, I think there was a big watershed moment, I think, in the breakthrough of Gen AI. So what do we mean? That's really symbolized by the launch of ChatGPT in late 2022. And
Right.
Gen AI is backed by these large language models that are trained on huge amount of data, and and they can really start do this logical cognitive work.
Right.
And since their introduction, we've really seen an acceleration in the adoption and the potential. Because in a nutshell, before we were using Gen AI, the software would be able to spot a problem, but not necessarily help you fix it. Now we're into the game that in some cases you can actually automate tasks. So if there's a problem, you can fix it. So we're moving from a world where the software was perhaps just an augmentation tool, as we said, it sped up the horse and the rider, to actually something that can actually automate certain tasks, albeit always under the ultimate control of people.
Right. So I'm guessing it's taken you many months, if not longer, to get actual rollout, because you've had to prove what you've just said to your clients. Is that?
That's correct. They're used to,
Yeah.
but I think that's where the big difference now is. Actually, one can move much quicker. One can move in days rather than weeks and months.
Right. Yeah, you may have seen, and I sent you a connection to the Financial Times article recently, where they put AI application stroke agents into 4 what they considered major categories. One being complexity, 2 being frequency, 3 being interconnectability, and 4, the cost of getting it wrong, which I thought was quite a helpful way of actually assessing it. We're interested in your views and also how you think it applies to your business.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, it is an illuminating way of looking at it. I think particularly area where I think people do have, understandably, fears of some mutant algorithm taking over all their negotiation and decision making, and that's not really
Yes.
what we're about. So actually, we are about automating tasks, but to do that in the contracting world, you have to break down the whole, what we call contract life cycle, from the moment a contract comes in to the moment it expires. And then if you do that, you can identify the best potential for automation. And so therefore it does lead you to looking initially at the most frequent and the least complex,
Yeah.
and the least risky. So for example, a good example of that is contracts are coming in daily. Traditionally, they would go into the legal in tray, and the legal in tray would just grow and grow and grow, and people would struggle to keep up with it. Actually, what software can now do is ingest the contracts and do that initial review that assesses the overall risk. It may send contracts directly back to the business teams without the need for legal review because they're so low value, so low risk, uh, or it assigns it to the right reviewer. So you're stopping that build up of the legal in tray, and potentially if you halve the legal in tray, or you know reduce it by a third, that's a huge efficiency and acceleration gain in the way the company is doing its business. So that's
Mm.
one example, but there are other examples that look at that same paradigm. What is most frequent? What does the lawyer not want to do, or the contract? Or what does the human not want to do? Another good example is when you sign the contract, extracting all the key terms into
Yes.
other databases of the company. So you avoid that Carillion situation. No one wants to have to do that. It used to be done by extracting into spreadsheets and
Yeah.
tables. Now you get the software, to do that. So those
To
are
do that. Right.
what we see, some quick win opportunities using that paradigm in the FD article. But then when we look forward, there is potential for more complex tasks also to be done. So a couple of examples in that area. So what a lot of companies, big companies, do is they're doing a lot of tenders during the year, and they may have a baseline of risk that they want each tender to comply with before they actually decide whether to bid. The sort of no go thing. That's absolutely made for automation software like ours. You can develop a solution in a matter of hours, that is going to save a lot of time that actually no one wants to actually do.
No. Is it likely or possible that risk being one side of the equation, reward being the other side, is it possible that the application could move into looking at rewards and then assessing that against risk?
Yeah, I mean, when we talk about risk, actually, it is always calibrated against
Get
reward.
you. Okay.
I think what the new sort of Gen AI capabilities are is that you're able to give and give context. So you can give context around both risk issues and reward, and then get the software to give recommendations and to actually
Oh,
think
okay.
quite logically.
Hmm. Hmm. Now you've spoken very positively about Gen AI, Chat GPT particularly. Any thoughts about the other contenders in this ever evolving space?
Yeah, I think just before we get onto that, I think the
Yeah.
one area also is useful to discuss in terms of this automation thing. I think one of the things we are all assessing, and businesses are interested, is how can you introduce automation into that
Yes.
process of negotiation?
Yes.
And this is where it is, you get into this complexity because everyone negotiates in a different way, different style. It will depend on the type of contract, and a whole range of factors. And so it is more challenging to have that automation. But again, if you break the thing down, you can identify contracts that are less complex,
Yes.
where the actual negotiation, where we talk the negotiation, the process of finalizing it could actually be done by machines, but then potentially at the end of that process, the people in both sides, they look at it and they assess the overall outcome. But what you're doing is if you can rely on the machines to do that process of negotiation, and you've still got the ultimate say, you are probably going to have more data-informed decisions that really relate to the context of the two businesses. You're probably going to have a fairer outcome. You're definitely going to have a quicker outcome. And over time, you will develop sort of more trust that will then mean that actually the machines can be trusted to do more, complex negotiations. I mean, the sort of contracts that I'm talking about for immediate automation of negotiation would be things like non-disclosure agreements or simple statements of work, where they are basically repeatable, and therefore the potential for machines to help in the negotiation, not just the review, but the negotiation, is much greater.
So this is in the high frequency but relatively low complexity categories.
That's right, but we need a mind shift, because I think people do fear this, paradigm of sort of machines negotiating. So there's a lot of, I think, education and guardrails, needed.
And how did you overcome these concerns for your?
Yeah, I think by breaking it down and identifying the best starting point for automation, which is often the most frequent and the least complex, and then
I guess you being a lawyer for an esteemed firm, I mean, you're talking a kind of peer-to-peer level, aren't you? If you're so that you've got more respect in a client's eyes than otherwise.
Yeah, it has definitely really helped me. And in terms of the sort of relationship, understanding what clients are trying to achieve, having been on the front line and seeing it done the old way, and seeing the potential of the new way, that's really helped.
And I guess that fourth category, FT reference, the cost of getting it wrong. So presumably, taking your point, that when it's higher complexity and the downside risks are greater, then there's more human interaction than otherwise.
Yeah, I think you have to have more guardrails in those.
More guardrails.
But equally, there will always be a risk where you engage in some automation, even on low commit, the risk of it getting wrong. But I think the risk can be assessed by data and statistics, and potentially now, it can be insured. This is where insurers are starting to provide some cover to fill in gaps that AI can't itself solve.
Are you getting any interest from insurance companies?
Yes, we are. There's a type of cover in the market that can actually protect clients against the software not working effectively.
Well, what I was meaning really was whether their contracts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Could be, because it's a bit confusing. There are many kind of AI tech businesses which seem to be focusing on the whole legal market, don't they?
That comes back to your question about so in terms of what's the competitive landscape.
Yes.
And the way we do it, I think we sort of break down, in the technology sphere, and particularly AI, there are people operating at different levels. So at the very top, you have the vendors of the large language models themselves, like OpenAI, and you have the large technology companies like Microsoft, who are offering AI tools and services that tend to be more very powerful, but very generalist. And then you come down and you see companies like ourselves that are providing these specialist applications. And so we compete in that area because the general applications that I've described, they often won't like speak the language of a particular company or speak its risk or legal policies or understand its business.
Yeah.
And that's
Yes.
where vendors like ourselves come in, where we can provide much more specialist services. So actually, when they use the AI, it's really using it based on the company's own business, the data in the company, and so therefore you get tailored, outcomes. And there are a number of vendors like ours, doing it, and all of us have our strengths and weaknesses.
Well, what would you say, completely objectively, of
Yeah.
course, what yours are?
I think where we are different and somewhat unique is we don't train our own models. We really use the best large language models available,
Right.
because we see that the large language models will become so much more powerful. We don't need to be in that business. We need to be in the business of getting the most out of the models
Yeah.
and applying
Yeah.
them in very specialist circumstances. And I think the other unique thing is that we tend to operate in the client's own environments that they have now, rather than offering what I would call a sort of standalone end-to-end contracting
Right.
platform. So if clients are using tools like Microsoft, we can plug into those tools. So you don't have to disrupt the fundamental workflows that exist. You can just improve them and help them change over time. So we're very much more, we'll go to the client's environment rather than asking them to come to our environment.
Very good. So you're deliberately neutral as to which AI platform client is using,
Yep.
which of course helps make you more future proof, doesn't it? Because there's less danger of the next version of the AI platform obsoleting some or part of what you are delivering now.
Yeah, we have a way that if a new model comes out, we can very easily plummet into the software and benefit from that new model. And that new model may be more powerful, it may be cheaper, it may do certain tasks better. So we work with a range of models.
There's some controversy over how much computing power is required for these large language models. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think definitely the computing power, the need will go up. But I think actually, if you look at some of the recent models,
Yes.
including Deep State, where actually they're able to reduce the computing power, but get the same or arguably the better at. So I think that problem will improve over time.
Yeah. Do you have any opinions about which AI platform you prefer or is better?
I think there's a number of. I mean, I think one of the key ones for us and clients is the security around the data.
Right.
So we're not using deep state, now just because of the concerns on where the data gets shared, how it gets used. So
Yes.
we will use models that are trusted and have a proper security infrastructure. And you can imagine this is absolutely fundamental. The starting point was all of the business of the company is in its contracts. So the security and integrity of the data is fundamental. But then you get into, okay, how capable is a particular model? How can you use it for a particular task? How cheap is it? All of those things, weigh into this. So for us, yes, we use a range of models.
Yeah. So you're kind of neutral. Okay. Well, we're getting to the end of our podcast, Simon. I'm going to ask you about your business, and given that you're pioneering the use of your product, remind us again what it's called.
So the product's called Tiro,
Tiro.
and our business
Yeah.
is called Lexical Labs.
Yeah. And how do you see the company progressing next few years?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're seeing a lot of rapid growth now, and I think one of the shifts we're seeing is serving not only large businesses but smaller businesses, and we can either serve them directly, or we work with a number of law firms that serve those businesses. So we're spreading. And I think, ultimately, we really want to see the software being used by more than just lawyers, that it's actually integral to the running, of a company. And so
as a
therefore,
commercial,
risk
right?
managers, commercial managers, project managers can all, benefit from what the software can offer.
Right. Well, we at Scale Up Group look forward to helping you on that journey by getting you the funding you require to expand and take advantage of, your first mover initiative here.
I mean, it's been great
So
working with you, John. So yeah, I really look forward to
th-
that.
thanks so very much. Any last reflections or thoughts before we close, Simon?
I mean, you can tell I'm very passionate in this, area. I think we're really at the start of a revolution. I think particularly in the way that software can start to think and action things, and there's huge, potential. It's very exciting being part of it.
Fantastic. Well, many congratulations where you've got to so far, and look forward to a continuation and expansion of that journey.
Thank
Thanks
you, John.
again, Simon Black of Lexical Labs. Bye-bye.